Hi, welcome to Sikorski's Thinkabouts. I really appreciate your clicking in today. I'm Laura Sikorski. I'll be your host. And the reason for Sikorski's Thinkabouts was I always wanted to give back to the community and that call center community, and I've been involved with it since 1986. So the decision to have a show, and when I approached Corinne Caro of Blue Chip Marketing, she was so excited about the concept that we went ahead with it. So today I am very excited to have Joe Ogno from the Nickerson Corporation. Joe is the director, have to put the glasses on folks, is the director of interiors for Nickerson, and he deals with a lot of different sides of the business, sides of furniture, sides of design. We met about 4 years ago at a LIMBA meeting, and we were both very excited about bringing the call center jobs back to Long Island and trying to see if we could work together in that venue. But on the professional side, Joe works with architects, designers, real estate executives. On the end user, and this is for our audience, he works with facility managers and backgrounds people, purchasing staff, and of course the CFOs, the guys that have the money that are going to design your call center, design your office for productivity. His specialties, which I find extremely interesting, he is very versed on New York State GSA contracts. And for those of you in purchasing, that is a very key element that you'll need. And he specializes a lot in higher education, furniture, has worked with the New York City Board of Education to equip all of the schools. And he actually, and I found this very interesting, that you were part of a 100-person team who went to the World Trade Center site and helped. So I think that is absolutely fabulous. So with that, I'm going to start our presentation. This again is just a little bit about, benefits of call center design and choosing the right furniture. For us, that was extremely important. So design. Design is really to attract staff. When you have a beautiful building or you have something that when people walk in, they really want to work there. So that is important in design. And the other mainstay is to assure the safety and welfare of your employees. I think that is probably the most paramount that we have. And the result of all this is going to give you a reduced stress environment, higher motivation, increased morale, reduced absenteeism, and all of those. And the last one is going to be very happy employees. So let's talk a little bit, Joe, about the kind of problems that are out there when people are ready to begin design and then do the furniture. What have you seen this when you're interviewing the staff?
Yeah, these are very standard staff problems we come across quite often. Going back to what you just mentioned about design being very important, excuse me, for the attraction of employees and also the retention of employees. That's 100%. If your space is not kept up to date, people might say, well, I went on an interview somewhere and boy, it really looked great. And all their workstations were new and their call center was beautiful and their phone system is new. So a lot of it has to do with attraction and also retention. And if you're having any of these things that are in your workspace or your workstation, you can think about how it frustrates your employees.
I love how you said think about. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Well, you can think about how it frustrates employees if you're always, if you're cramped, if you don't have the right tools, if you don't have the right air quality. That's something obviously furniture doesn't address that much, but facilities people tell us all the time, one of the worst things they have is temperature and air. They have people complaining all the time, it's too hot, it's too cold. And glare, again, that can be attributed sometimes to furniture with monitor arms. If monitor arms aren't set correctly, people have glare, they have the improper equipment. So we see a lot of that. And as far as attracting employees go, sometimes you have to realize, well, what kind of employees am I trying to attract? If you're a law firm, you might be attracting standard middle-of-the-road employees. You know exactly what you're getting. But if you're a high-tech firm, you want to look like a high-tech firm. You don't want there to be old school furniture and look like a senator's office if you're trying to attract the young crowd that needs to look a little bit more like it's Silicon Valley.
And plus, I think that kind of ties in with a help desk call center, because those are the ones that are the techie gurus who are going to assist you or assist the customers.
And they really
out
need
there.
to be able to move and take calls and keep moving.
Absolutely. So, we talked a little bit about job tools and what they need. They need a monitor, they need a phone, and I found, in designing furniture myself, that you have to design for right and left-handed people.
Yes.
Many times, somebody doesn't like their phone on the right. They like the phone on the left. So I think the most important thing is that the staff has to be able to control their own workspace. Now, have you found that a lot of companies, do they really train their employees on how to use their furniture?
No, that is something we offer every time, and most dealers would do that. They offer to say, hey, let's have a half a day, and we'll, especially in a large project, if you have 100 workstations and you're using brand new chairs, brand new monitor arms, brand new keyboard trays, you can't expect your staff to walk in and it's going to be like it was on Friday when they left.
Right.
So the training really does lack. A lot of companies don't have the time to train. If they're training, they're down. Their call center's not taking calls. So they definitely need to be trained on the furniture. They also should be, for the most part, asked what they really need or what they want. There are minimums, but then sometimes there's, hey, I really don't need this, or I don't want that, or what I really would love in my new workstation.
And that's really true. Many times designers forget to ask the people that actually use the furniture. They just assume, okay, it's standard, 101, we're just going to put this basic desk in there. And a call center is a very different type of space that is required. But I also, to get back on the training, one thing about that we have for you is that on your new hires, there should be a section in your training program that takes the staff to the work floor, and they're sat in the station and they understand how to set their chair, how to set their monitor, and so forth. So when you have an office, they call it in the industry ergonomics. And ergonomics is just not furniture. Ergonomics involves the layout, the furniture, the acoustics, the climate, the lighting. All of this we kind of touched on a little bit. So let's kind of look at common problems. The insufficient in the call center, what happens is there's insufficient training space. And if you have a center that maybe has 100 people, you cannot just have one training room because you have ongoing training and so forth. Lounge space. Lounging or quiet time is very important for staff, and certainly conference rooms. Another problem with layout is the traffic patterns. I've gone into some call centers and they're in the, let's say the Midwest with a lot of snow, and the call center's right at the front door, and the lounge area is clear over to the other side. So snow is being tracked into the office and so forth. And then, of course, there's no reference library or counseling project rooms. And later, Joe has brought us some really neat pictures of different kind of furniture for the future. And I think we're going to show you about a project room, because many times in the call center, you're asked to pull together 3 or 4 representatives and start a project, and then you have no place to go. And you'll see what can happen with the new furniture of the future. This is a design that I think most call centers should be familiar with, but I think it's important. Here is the entrance to the call center, so you need someone in an administrative area blocking. This is where you have your files and your manager if you have a visitor to the office. Here's the concept of the lounge. The telephone and storage room for deliveries, somebody coming in can go right here. The actual call center, phone center is with glass so people can see through, but it's locked, or there's a door or barrier. And then of course we have a training room and so forth. So you have your view of management to all areas of the call center. So we really are now going to concentrate a lot on our furniture. And so let's talk about furniture problems. Joe, you want to kind of highlight all of these for us?
Sure, okay. Too trendy. That could easily, it speaks for itself. When people buy something for a workspace, it's just not the right fit. Oh, it looked really good in the catalog, or the designer said we really need to have this. What I see sometimes too trendy, It certainly has to do with technology. Sometimes people have a fantastically large monitor, something like this on their own desk. That's way too you don't need that large monitor. You probably need two small ones. Would be better than having a large one.
And do you find that today, and even the non-call center, perhaps in the billing departments, anybody that has an interaction with the customer, that people are going with the two monitors?
Yeah, the two monitors. I haven't done too many offices or workstations, let's say, where people are outfitting them for just one monitor anymore. It makes a lot of sense. Anytime you're doing any kind of billing, any kind of customer service, it always makes sense to have whatever you're running your company with open here, and access to whatever, maybe a customer file, anything in particular here. So you can do two things at once. It makes no sense to start a new office and not have the ability to do two monitors.
It makes sense to me.
Right.
I mean, I'm not used to the side-by-side, but in my office, I have one on top of the other.
Sure,
so I have my large monitor, so I could, is where I need to, where my active work is, and then my smaller laptop monitor is where I, feel comfortable. Have you ever seen the top and bottom? Or
I've seen, they see now, you obviously have seen trading desks where you can have 7 or 8 monitors. It doesn't make sense in a call center, but they have under and over. They also have monitor arms that, because they're built for tablets now, that can spin. They have a monitor. You can take this and turn it vertical, and you can actually have the screen vertical or horizontal. So.
Well, I think that's great think-abouts, guys, because, again, thinking of the furniture of the future, making sure that your staff, regardless if they're agent staff or business folks, that they have the flexibility again in their workstation.
Right.
Let's talk about disaster recovery a little bit. On the techie side, from my perspective, if your phone system goes down, you hope that there's another secondary site where your calls are still going to come in. But there are times when you cannot get dial tone and so forth. What have you seen in terms of furniture design for disaster recovery?
Well, there's two things that I've dealt with pretty closely. One is dealing directly with some restoration companies who come across that, where they'll be, let's say, if something physical happened, not just a no dial tone, but there was a flood. And disaster recovery for those people, it's physical. They really can't use that space, so they need to go somewhere else. So sometimes people will buy space in a disaster restoration particular building,
Right.
and run a parallel company for a week, 3 days, whatever it need be. So furnishing another space isn't really in the budget for most companies, but buying a small share of that and be able to go there that's one thing for disaster recovery. As far as furniture within a building, flexibility is important, because you may not be able, for whatever reason, on one side of your building to run your call center, but the other side of your building could be operable. It could be something in the phone lines. Do you have the ability to just go over to the other side of the building? Are you able to move furniture? Are you able to move staff? Are you able to run a skeleton staff in the meantime? Things like that. You have to think a little bit about furniture when you're designing and thinking about disaster recovery.
Totally agree.
Sometimes they exclude it because disaster recovery, it's kind of somebody hit the red panic button and they don't think about furniture. So if you think about furniture beforehand, there's a lot less to think about when something happens.
And I think that's an excellent point. Totally excellent. We talked a little bit about the feedback. Let's talk about too personalized. I know I walk into some call centers, and here in New York we have a term called tchotchkes, and those are little things that everybody likes to have around their workstation. What do you suggest to your facilities folks about things around the call center?
Call centers particularly have the issue, some of them run 2 shifts or even 3 shifts. You may have people sitting in that desk right after you leave.
So that's a hot seating environment.
That's a hot seating environment, hoteling environment, and they just don't have the space, and they really don't want your 15 pictures of Hawaii and all your tchotchkes and stuff around, because then when they show up, they need their space as well. So a lot of times facilities, they'll just be rules and regulations against tchotchkes or pictures. Sometimes overhead cabinets, they actually have, instead of just opening, they'll open and slide to the back. So what that when they slide to the back, you can't have anything on top of them, because it'll knock everything off. So facilities, people like that and say, I want the ones that slide, because nobody can put anything on top. So those little things you can do to kind of keep tchotchkes away. That's more of a cultural up front. They have to say, well, your furniture
Mm-hmm.
it's our furniture, and we really, you can bring in if you want a picture of your family, that's
Right.
fine, but you really can't.
Right, you want to have some type of
Right.
home kind of concept.
Yeah, call
in your,
centers are definitely different in that sense
Mm-hmm.
versus the typical workstation where someone lives 8, 9, 10 hours a day,
Right.
and they do different tasks. Call centers also have to be task specific, so personalization could hinder that. If it's if you're putting too many things on one side of your desk,
Right.
you really need to be able to.
Well,
move
and I
around.
think also with the call center environment, customer service, customer care, whatever environment you may have that deals with the public on the phone, in some cases you can't leave and just say I have to get up and I have to go somewhere.
Right.
No, you're scheduled to work a certain time frame. We did talk about staff not being taught how to use their furniture, and I've found over the years, and that's kind of a pain point for me, because I think it's extremely important that you know how to use your desk. I mean, for example, when I came into the studio today, I started fiddling with my chair because
Yeah.
I wanted to be higher. So I don't know why, but I just did. The other thing is that we find that the furniture is poorly organized. These are your top 3 financial investments, and I'm going to have you address these points.
Okay. This is something I learned over the course of 5 or 6 years working with some A-line furniture companies. And what they do is they have great focus groups and write white papers on how do we connect with our end users. So what they've come up with, and they've noticed your end users, their top 3 in financial investments are people, real estate, and technology. People, obviously, the recruiting, the training, the benefits, the payroll, the healthcare, etc. All the money you spend directly on your people. Huge investment. Real estate, front office, back office, sales, warehouse, everything you lease, you purchase, you rent is real estate. It's costly. On Long Island, it's about $25, I believe, a square foot is the average cost of a commercial building. And retail could be higher, and obviously there's a spot that warehouse could be lower. But so if you figure $20 to $25 a square foot, that's an expensive investment. And New York City gets even that much better. All across the country, Chicago, anywhere is expensive. So real estate is a huge outlay. And technology, the amount of money companies spend today on technology in there. Everybody is so well connected. Just their desktops. Everybody has laptops. We have tablets. You have smartphones. All that money they spend in technology, and then the telephony and all the stuff that goes into a call center, super high investment. And furniture directly and indirectly touches all 3 of those things. You talked before about people being comfortable in their space, being ergonomic, being more efficient in what they do. That's people. Real estate. How do you manage your real estate?
Right.
Shrinking the footprint. I know the federal government is under a huge edict right now. Shrink the amount of space you use. So if they want to stop leasing they lease probably 1 billion square feet of space in the United States. Shrink, and that's also in corporate America.
And that worries me a little bit, because you spend a third of your life at the office, and if all of a sudden you're becoming enclosed and you can't move and you don't have the things that you are used to in your work environment, so that really is a concern for us.
And sometimes we see that not being done very intelligently. People just
say... That was a very nice way to put it. I like that.
Well, sometimes people, all right, I need to shrink my footprint, I understand that, but it doesn't mean I can go from 10,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet.
Right, you got to do it logically.
But it doesn't always happen. A lot of times in corporate America, they say, no, we're taking this space, now make it work. That doesn't always work for somebody like you who's trying to say, hey, people need a certain amount.
Right.
And then the last part of this in technology, with all of those devices, and especially telephones and computers, they work directly with the furniture. These days, everything is connected. Call centers, once they go together, they're sewn together with wire and cable.
Right.
And when the wire and cable gets involved, you can't just move them and break them down. So now your furniture is part of your technology.
Right.
And it has to be able to grow with it has to be able to change. I can't see any technology. We're not going backwards. We're not going to have less technology in a workstation.
Right.
You might have smaller and faster, but you're not going to have less.
But you may have, that Wi-Fi, and that all may come into play.
And on the higher education side, we saw Wi-Fi become very big, and then actually dial back a little bit because they lost control of it, and then they have bandwidth issues. So Wi-Fi got really big over the last 10 years, and then some schools are dialing back a little bit. The larger schools in larger areas, there's still Wi-Fi, but they're doing a little bit less of it.
So here is, what your office needs to be, what it should be. From professional appearance, clients see it, and that's going to give you success. Are you successful?
Sure.
I think, your point here of vendors see, business is growing, they're solvent, and they're important, and they understand. But let's go back to the comfort level, okay? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay. You want to be able to, like we said, attract your best employees, keep your best employees. You want to, your retention is very important because you know what it costs to train and go through all that. And then the design that is functional for productivity. If you're comfortable, you're more productive. Happy cows make more milk, which is a funny way to put it, but happy cows make more milk.
But it's extremely important.
Yes.
And I think this kind of telling furniture of the past, it really, I think it was uncomfortable, it was stressful, it was static. Nobody really, these are black and white shots, but, pretty much the offices were boring. There wasn't much color. It was you went there and you did your work, and very, very, very
none of these people
impersonal.
had a say in what happened. It was plopped in and you just went in there.
Right. What we'd like to do is something different, and I've got to do that. Oops. I should be more technical, and I'm not.
I think you go press play, you should be good.
I should be good.
Okay.
Okay, this is a furniture of the future. And if you could explain what this gentleman is doing.
Sure. This is a furniture called Swift Space. What this gentleman is doing, he's the CEO of Swift Space. He's setting up a 5x5 workstation in about 45 seconds. It's very, very strong, all extruded aluminum. This is a workstation that can be also broken down in 30 seconds, rolled away and stored. It could be done in blocks of 100. And they could all be taken down. You can see how fast it's going together. This is able to use your footprint better than any other furniture that's out there. The federal government's buying thousands and thousands of these. Corporations are now looking at it because if they can have a call center here most of the year, but the two months they don't need it, or vice versa.
Seasonal.
If I'm Amazon, I might need 10,000 more employees in December. I can do this, roll it out, and not use that space the rest of the year. Or you can use the space for a cocktail party one night and then put the furniture back the next day.
Furniture back in.
This is a very small 5x5 workstation. It's pretty much done. In the time it took us to show the video, there's your workstation. You roll in some pedestals and you have a call center.
I think this is an extremely great idea, especially for home agents. Because if you didn't have the ability to have that person have a great office space and so forth, and oh my goodness, I lost the entire presentation. Hold on.
There it is.
There we go. I should know better.
It never works when you want it to work.
No. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the furniture. Let's kind of just quickly go through these, and because we're getting a little tight on time.
Sure. Okay. So these are the furniture of the future. So you see the mobile, that's a Swift Space Station, and this ergonomic seating, that's a crazy ergonomic seat. Obviously, everybody has that, but ergonomics again. Happy cows make more milk. Collapsible, benching and collaborative is huge.
This collapsible is really great. I think that's great for task forces if you needed to pull some people on the side.
This is really big. This is really big right now for people who need quick meeting spaces. New York University uses it in their libraries when people sign up for tutoring, but they don't have space. They pull people together. It seats up to 8 people. There are many companies that make it, but this happens to be another Swiss Space one. And this is benching and collaborative. This is what you hear is a buzz now in the world. Benching and collaborative. Everybody wants to get together.
And meet and so forth.
So most of these things can all be put together, made together.
Well, we've had, a really great conversation. We're almost out of time. But I do want to ask Joe one final question.
Sure.
What components are available for a workstation, a call center workstation? This is a viewer who has sent in and made this comment. I know my staff hates keyboard trays. So what All right, what do you think?
Okay. That is a common tale, by the way, hating keyboard trays, because they hit people in the knees. And again, if you're not trained and you're not putting your chair at the right height, then this becomes a problem. So that's a common tale. But what's available, monitor arms are very big and very important right now, because you want to have them to be able to grow, have 2 monitors, things like that. There's also keyboard trays, if necessary. Sometimes they're necessary to meet the corporate edict of ergonomics. The right pedestals for storage, overhead storage. There are many, many kind of tool rails that will handle phones and what goes on. You're more versed in the call center world of the technology that needs to get handled, but the furniture will be able to be molded to whatever's needed in the stations like that.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Joe. You've been a fabulous guest.
Thank you.
A couple things, folks. We are celebrating Customer Service Week this week. So think about your customers, think about your staff, give staff some fun things during the week. Give them some ice cream, give them some pizza days, etc. And would like to say that our guest next week is going to be Deirdre Siegel, and she is from Pear Core Solutions. And they are a management consulting and HR management firm, and we're going to talk about culture and the impact on staff. So today I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you need to reach either Joe or myself, certainly the best way is at Twitter. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, have a great week. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.